Not the price of the receiver, not the number of speakers in the ceiling. The thing quietly deciding whether you ever hear real Dolby Atmos in your living room is a $6 piece of plastic and copper sitting behind your television. And right now, in a huge number of homes, that cable is the reason the height channels you paid for are not doing anything at all. You bought the television. You bought the soundbar or the receiver. Somewhere, a store clerk or a checkout page sold you a cable. And you assumed a cable is a cable. It is not. Today we are ranking the HDMI cable and connection mistakes that quietly strangle Atmos, worst to skip. Traps first, real answers last. And by the end I will tell you the exact cable I would put behind my own television tonight. Here is why this matters more than it sounds like it should. Audio gear gets wired into a wall and forgotten. You are not going to crawl behind that entertainment center every few months to check a cable. You set it up once, you never think about it again, and if the cable was wrong from day one, you will spend years thinking your soundbar has weak height channels or your receiver cannot really do Atmos, when the real problem was never turned on in the first place. Nobody profits from you knowing this. The store that sold you the bundle cable in the box does not lose a sale by staying quiet. The fix, when you get there, usually costs less than a fast food meal. Number 5. The trap that ranks dead last. Plugging your soundbar or receiver into any open port on the back of the television instead of the one port that actually says eARC. Think of your television as a small train station with several platforms. Every platform looks the same from the outside. Only one of them has the express track that can carry the heavy freight. Plain audio return channel, the older kind found on most of the ports on your television, was built to carry maybe 1 megabit per second of audio, which is genuinely tiny enough for compressed surround sound, not enough for real object-based Atmos. Enhanced audio return channel, the new one, carries roughly 37 times that. If your cable lands on the wrong platform, the television does not warn you. It just quietly downgrades everything, and you will never see a pop-up telling you what you lost. In a real living room, this sounds like Atmos that technically turns on in the settings menu, but never actually rises overhead. Dialogue stays flat and center, explosions stay pinned to the front, and you assume that is just what your gear sounds like. Buy it if you enjoy troubleshooting invisible problems for the next 3 years. Skip it if you would rather spend 90 seconds checking the label on the back of your television once and never think about it again. That first one probably stung a little, because it is an easy mistake to make in the dark behind a television stand, feeling around for the least crowded looking port. If that just made you go mentally check your own setup, that reaction, right there, is the whole reason this channel exists, because clarity should not require an engineering degree. If a stranger's living room is about to get better because you told them this, hitting like does exactly that. It puts this in front of the next person about to make the same guess in the dark. Subscribe if you want the no-hype version of this kind of thing every week, because our whole promise here is that we never sell you gear you do not need. One word in the comments, has your soundbar or receiver actually been plugged into the eARC port this whole time? Yes or no? I read every single one. Number 4. Trusting the words HDMI 2.1 printed on a cheap cable's packaging. Here is the uncomfortable part. Multiple independent testing outlets in 2026 have found that cables printed with HDMI 2.1 on the box are not automatically the real thing. Many of them physically cap out at 18 or 28 gigabits per second, even though the box implies the full 48. Picture 2 garden hoses that look identical from the outside. One rated to actually handle full water pressure, and one that will hold together but restrict the flow the moment you turn the tap all the way up. Your television and receiver are turning the tap all the way up, expecting the real thing. The only label that actually guarantees the full spec is Ultra High Speed HDMI cable, a specific certification name, not a marketing phrase, and every genuinely certified cable carries a hologram sticker you can scan with the official HDMI cable certification app to confirm it is not counterfeit. In a real room, an under-spec cable does not fail loudly. It usually just refuses to hold arc at all, or it holds it intermittently. So Atmos drops out for a second during a loud action scene and nobody in the house can figure out why. Buy it if you enjoy gambling on packaging copy. Skip it if you would rather spend 30 seconds checking for 4 specific words before you click purchase. quick gut check before we keep going, because this next one catches people who think they already avoided the trap. Even a genuinely good cable will not save you if you reach for the wrong cable family entirely. Number 3. Reaching for an optical cable. The thin cable with the little door and the red glowing light inside it as your safe workaround when eARC will not cooperate. Optical cables are not lower quality exactly, they are a smaller pipe by design, built for an earlier generation of surround sound. That physical limitation cannot carry the true, lossless, object-based version of Atmos, no matter how expensive the optical cable is, or how nicely it is braided. It caps out in roughly the same territory as plain eARC. Think of it like mailing a letter through a tiny mail slot instead of driving the package over in a van. The letter arrives. The package does not fit. In a quiet nighttime viewing situation, this is the setup where dialogue sounds fine, but you never once hear a plane genuinely pass overhead, or rain genuinely fall from above you, because there is no overhead information being carried at all. Buy it if optical is truly your only remaining port, and you have accepted you are getting compressed surround, not real Atmos. Skip it if your receiver or soundbar has an eARC-labeled port sitting unused, while you are relying on optical out of habit from an older setup. Right there is the moment a lot of people's mental model breaks, because most of us were taught that any HDMI-shaped or audio-shaped cable does the same job. It does not, and that is the pivot point of this whole video. You are 2 decisions away from getting all of this correctly, and neither decision costs much money. Subscribe now if you want the specific one I would buy, because that is coming up next, and stick around. Because after the picks, I am also giving you the free settings changes worth checking before you spend a single dollar. Now the pivot. Everything below this line is not a trap, it is a genuine recommendation. And the reason these are worth talking about right now is that certified ultra high speed cables have gotten cheap enough that there is no real financial reason left to gamble on an uncertified one. Number 2, the honest budget certified pick. A cable like the Monoprice 8K certified ultra high speed HDMI cable. As of this year, it lists around $12.99 for a 6-foot length, and it does carry the real ultra high speed certification, meaning it is built to actually deliver the full 48 gigabits per second the eARC audio return channel needs, along with the video bandwidth for 4K and 8K pass-through if your gear ever uses it. Think of this one as the reliable commuter car rather than the sports car. Nothing flashy, gold-plated connectors, a shielded jacket, and a company that has been making cables long enough to know what a return rate looks like when a batch is bad. In a real room at night, this is the cable that simply disappears you stop thinking about it, which is the entire goal. The one place it can fall short is if you are running an unusually long distance, say behind a wall to a rack in another room, where a passive copper cable like this starts to lose reliability much past 10 to 16 feet, and you would want an active or fiber version instead. Buy it if your run is short, under that 10-foot range, and you want the cheapest cable that will not quietly sabotage you. Skip it if your cable run is long, or if you want a slightly sturdier connector for a setup you plan on moving around often. Number 1, the one I would actually put behind my own television tonight. A fully certified ultra high-speed cable from a brand that leans hard into the certification itself, such as the Zeskit Maya line, which runs around $33.99 for a 6.5-foot length at full retail, though it is often found lower through other sellers. I will be honest with you and attack my own pick here for a second. You are paying roughly double what the Monoprice option costs for a cable that electrically is doing the identical job of carrying 48 gigabits per second and eARC-sees 37 megabits of lossless audio. Nobody's ears can hear the difference between 2 certified copper cables of the same length. What you are actually paying for is the uni-body connector shell. Slightly heavier shielding that some buyers report holds up better with repeated plugging and unplugging behind a moved television. And honestly, the peace of mind of a company that puts the certification front and center rather than burying it in fine print. Think of it like buying the toolbox with the lifetime hinge warranty instead of the one that looks identical on the shelf. You may never need the difference, but the day you do, You will be glad you paid for it. In a real living room, this is the cable where Atmos genuinely does what it promised on the soundbar's own box. A helicopter genuinely passes overhead instead of just getting louder in front of you. Rain genuinely falls from above instead of hissing out of the front speakers. Buy it if you want the closest thing to a set it and forget it cable, and you do not mind paying a small premium for the build quality and the certification confidence. Skip it if you already own a properly certified budget cable like the Monoprice pick above, because in that case you are simply paying $20 for a warm feeling, not for better sound. So here is the whole video collapsed into two categories. The traps, plugging into the wrong port instead of the one labeled eARC, trusting an uncertified cable just because the box says HDMI 2.1, and defaulting to an optical cable when an eARC port is sitting right there, unused. The real answers: a genuinely certified ultra high speed cable, either the budget Monoprice pick for short runs, or the Zeskit Maya pick if you want the sturdier build and do not mind the extra cost. Two decisions, both under $35, and you are done for a decade. Here is the 30-second check, no technical knowledge required. Look at the back of your television and find the one HDMI port that has the word eARC printed directly next to it. Not just HDMI, but eARC specifically. Confirm your soundbar or receiver's manual or setup menu actually lists eARC support, not just audio return channel. Confirm the actual cable in that port is labeled Ultra High Speed, not just a generic HDMI label with a version number printed on the box. And ask yourself what your room actually needs, if your run behind the wall is under 10 feet. A passive certified copper cable is fine. If it is longer, you need an active or fiber version, not a longer version of the same cheap cable. 3 free things to check tonight before you spend anything. First, run the room correction or calibration process your receiver or soundbar shipped with, the one most people click past during setup, because it measures how sound actually bounces around your specific furniture and walls and adjusts for it, rather than assuming a showroom. Second, turn off any virtual surround or fake surround processing mode if you do have real height speakers or a real eARC connection, because that mode is designed to fake height information you no longer need. And leaving it on can actually muddy the real thing. Third, check that your television's audio output is set to bitstream or pass-through rather than a fixed stereo PCM setting, because a fixed stereo setting will flatten Atmos into 2 channels before it ever reaches your eARC cable, no matter how good that cable is. If you are still deciding, here is the honest service offer. Drop your room size in feet, the television you own, and the soundbar or receiver you are considering in the comments, and I will tell you honestly, cable and port included, whether it will actually work the way you are hoping. Every room is different, and I would rather tell you the truth now than have you find out during a movie night with guests over. I read every single one of these. The most expensive mistake in this whole video was never a piece of gear. It was a cable that cost less than lunch, plugged into the wrong hole in the dark. Get the platform right, and the $50 difference between cables stops mattering nearly as much as people think. Next time, we are looking at the other half of this exact same problem. The subwoofer setting almost everyone leaves cranked far too high, and why it is quietly ruining the same Atmos mix you just fixed tonight.